Dead Space is a game that I have fond memories of. And although boomer shooters are the primary focus of this channel, the Dead Space remake is a game that I was looking forward to, and I finally got around to playing it. The original Dead Space was supposed to be a direct sequel to System Shock 2. However, it eventually became its own thing and took inspiration from Resident Evil 4 for its third-person, over-the-shoulder perspective and its action horror focus. The recent remake takes what the original did well and improves upon it with advanced dynamic lighting, more detailed environments, more detailed character models, and smoother movement and combat with improved weapons as well. While the original game was developed by Visceral Games, the remake was created by EA Motive, and they really knocked it out of the park. Some story elements were changed from the original, but I don't typically care much about story details, so in this review, I will primarily be focusing on the gameplay. But for those of you who haven't played the original, I will summarize the premise. In Dead Space, you play as an engineer named Isaac Clarke, and you and a small crew are tasked with investigating what has happened aboard the USG Ishimura, a planet-cracking spaceship with the purpose of mining planets, moons, and asteroids for their resources. The game starts with you and your crew searching for the USG Ishimura's location, following your response to a distress beacon. After a rocky arrival, it doesn't take long for the zombie-like aliens known as necromorphs to make their presence known. Things go from 0 to 100 real quick, and the plot that follows involves a twisted doctor, a mysterious religion, and a DNA-altering virus caused by a strange artifact known as the Marker. This plot is complemented by great gameplay and beautifully immersive environments. As I mentioned previously, the lighting and detail combined with excellent sound design to create an immersive atmosphere that harkens back to games like Doom 3. And to up the immersion even more, there are no loading screens in Dead Space, thanks to the developers taking advantage of modern SSDs. This means that moving through the Ishimura is an unbroken experience full of combat and exploration. Speaking of exploration, this is greatly rewarded. You'll always want to check every corner so that you don't miss cabinets and storage containers that hold crucial ammunition, credits, power nodes, and health kits. If you don't explore your environment, Dead Space can feel like a brutal survival horror game as opposed to an action horror experience. As you progress through the campaign, the discovery of crew members' rigs will grant access to different levels of security clearance. So, once a new level is gained, it is recommended to check back on those previously locked off rooms. Oh, and don't forget to stomp dead necromorphs with Isaac's mighty boot, as this is how resources are gained from enemies if they haven't been shot out of them already. Resources can also be gained from stores, with credits that can be found in the environment acting as currency. In addition to the stores, there are upgrade benches to be found that can improve all sorts of properties of weapons and of Isaac's engineering suit. Speaking of the engineering suit, new suits can be unlocked, which come with heavier armor and unlocked upgrade paths. Each upgrade path consists of cells that can have nodes slotted into them, providing improvements to things like health, air supply, and stasis energy, with air supply being very important during the zero gravity sections in space. The system of nodes and upgrade paths functions similarly for weapons, with weapon upgrade schematics being found in the environment. These schematics are then used to unlock new upgrade paths. It is impossible to fully upgrade every weapon during a single playthrough, so this is where player choice and how they want to play the game is present and important. Weapons can be upgraded further if players decide to do a New Game Plus run, and this mode also provides access to the military suit, which looks very badass, by the way. Combat is a vital piece of Dead Space's gameplay. In this game, dismemberment is a pillar of the combat system, and this was quite revolutionary when the original released. Our first tool to dismember the disgusting necromorphs is our trusty plasma cutter, and this is pretty self-explanatory. It is recommended that the legs are cut off first, as this will slow down encroaching enemies before you finish them off at the head or arms. And what's cool is that you can change the angle of the projectile from vertical to horizontal to best deal with the current situation. The pulse rifle is kind of the odd one out, as it is a standard military rifle, while the rest of the weapons are essentially heavy-duty and extremely dangerous, I might add, mining and engineering tools. The pulse rifle was pretty useless in the original, but here it's been given a grenade launcher attachment, which does make for a pretty decent alt-fire mode. There's also the line gun, which is basically a beefed up plasma cutter with a wider spread that can also place laser traps. And the force gun, which shoots out a kinetic blast that can make its function a bit like a shotgun. But it is most useful when the gravity well alt fire is performed in combination with the ultra powerful continuous laser from the contact beam's primary fire. Which also has a devastating alt-fire of its own. In addition to this, there's the flamethrower, which was also pretty useless in the original, but now it has an alt-fire mode that shoots out a flame wall that is great for keeping enemies at bay and dealing damage over time. Then, last but not least, there's the Ripper, a weapon that can either launch saw blades or hold them in front of you to cut up enemies, stun-locking them in the process. I would have to say that my favorite weapons are the Plasma Cutter, Contact Beam, Force Gun, and Ripper, in no particular order. There is a great deal of weapon synergy here, and in general, the functionality of most of the weapons is improved from the original game. Weapons are not the only tools in your belt, however, as you also have access to stasis and kinesis modules, with stasis being great for temporarily slowing down enemies and environmental hazards, and with kinesis being great for levitating the dismembered arms of necromorphs or metal rods and turning them into damaging projectiles that can be hurled at enemies. And yes, of course, you can toss explosive canisters as well. The use of severed appendages and metal rods as weapons was actually a gameplay element that was taken from Dead Space 2, and it adds a lot more variety and room for creativity to the combat encounters aboard the Ishimura. All of these weapons and abilities are vital to your success in Dead Space, especially since the enemy variety is high, and they all want you to join their ranks. I will admit that even though I enjoyed my overall experience greatly, I did encounter some annoying bugs, like how sometimes I would try to use a weapon, but no projectile would be shot from it, yet at the same time the ammo counter would drop. I also had a pretty hilarious bug on both playthroughs, in which at a later encounter with the evil Dr. Mercer and a regenerating monster known as the Hunter, neither of them spawned, and the cutscene involved dialogue from Isaac, but silence from a non-existent Dr. Mercer, and eventually an objective to escape the Hunter, while no Hunter was present. I encountered some other more minor bugs that were also solved by reloading a recent save, as well as some performance issues, but these seemed to be more prevalent during my first playthrough. On my New Game Plus run, I didn't encounter these issues anywhere near as often, and the second playthrough was definitely the most fun, in my opinion, especially since I could make my weapons even more powerful. The Dead Space remake gets a strong recommendation from me. Despite the bugs I encountered, it is still well worth the price of admission. If you are a fan of the original, or a fan of horror games in general, you have no excuse to skip this one. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please remember to like and subscribe, and dislike it if you didn't. As always, enjoy the rest of your day.